This is basing on a 50-meter cable average for this job. So here's our auto doors as well. So let's just drag our auto doors up. I'll just do a quick save again, just so I've got it. I'll drag our auto doors up. And here's our exit button and our break glass. So we've now got our 6 card readers, 4 electric strikes, 2 exit buttons, 2 break glasses, 2 reed switches, and we've also got 2 auto doors. And I said before, I accidentally deleted the auto doors. So we've now got all of this covered. So we can highlight these and off they go. The only other items that we need to add in here are the time associated to our commissioning and programming, and also the credentials. So any sort of cards or fobs that we're going to use on the card readers to actually use the system. There was no notes within the specification that I could see regarding quantities of credentials or fobs or cards. So we might just throw in a number. I'll just have a quick read just. So yeah, I can't see a quantity in there. So I'm just going to add in some fobs. So cipher card readers. So we're going to get cipher fobs. So we just type cipher into our catalogue. So the catalogue just brings us into all of our parts list, and you can see all the cipher items. Now I'll create a takeoff template for this so that you're not having to go and search through all of these parts. But we're just going to take 50 for now. That just means we've got an amount of fobs assigned, so that we then we've got the cost covered. We could exclude it because it's not been noted there, but for $675, including it in here is just something that we just kind of do as part of our processes. Back to our catalogue now. Once again, I will create these as takeoff templates, but here's our commissioning and testing, and I'll also just make it an allowance. I'll use a miscellaneous figure where I'm just trying to balance hours. I just need to jump in the back end for a second. Okay, so sorry about that. I realised when I was looking at the hours, you'll notice I've just made a change in the back end of Simpro. So all the time was showing up in minutes, and I've just changed it to hours. Typically, we work on, when we're balancing our projects, we work on 8-hour days, so full 8-hour days. And yeah, everything was showing in minutes. So I just wanted to make sure that everything was showing in hours the way it should. A project of this size, so up to about the limit of the 16 doors, we would normally allow 16 hours. So 16 hours is for us two of our technicians for one day doing the testing and commissioning of this system. So we're allowing 16 hours for that. And that, as I said, that's up to about the 16 door mark. We can normally work on the limit of that 16 door mark inside of that 16 hours. As we go over that point, we start to ramp up the hours, and I'll go through and set up some takeoff templates based on that, so that you're not having to guess. It's all laid out for you. All of these hours are based on the time it takes for us to work through a process. In the tender space, we tend to rationalize these down a little. I'll set these up so that you're not having to make these changes. So I'm just going to change these to half an hour. That's based on our experience of working with these products. I'm also going to double the cable that we have allocated up to the full, not double, but you can see that they come in certain lengths. So the 250 meters, 300 meters, 250 meters. So that's the rolls that they come in, and we're just going to take it up to the next full roll just to make sure that we've got enough cable on site. And cable's not expensive, but we just so we find it easier to use, throw in and make sure we've got enough cable there rather than having to go looking for it or missing out on some labour. So all I've done there is this was at 300, so I've taken it up to 500, which is two 250 meter rolls. So just the next full roll is where we will round these quantities up to, and they'll actually order that way in the background as well. So 300 meters going up to 600, 250, we're up to 500. This time is calculated based on, we're saying 2 hours per 100 meters of cable. So equates to 10 hours to rough in that cable, and across these you've got 32 hours, which for us works out to be 4 days of labour to rough in this job. We've done our best to try and make all of this just pre-populate, so we're not having to think a lot, and hopefully that makes it easier for you when you're doing the quoting as well. Now, it just so happens that this has rounded itself to a fairly round, or a perfect round figure of 72 hours, which it works out into 8-hour days. So I don't have to put any extra hours in here to make that balance. But what I will do is throw in a miscellaneous amount. We usually work on about 1% of the total figure is what we'll put in this miscellaneous here. So in this, we'll just round based on that it was 17,000, and we're just going to say $170. That can fluctuate depending on the project and how involved it is, but that's a pretty safe kind of number to use here. And that's it. That's the alarm access control cost center built. We're excluding the PC, so we don't have to have any allowance for that. We've got our professional management software. So there's our software if we're looking at the scope of works. We've got our software and licenses covered. So I mentioned that there's 16 door licenses included with that software package. So we've got our software and licenses covered. We've got our main controller with 7 amp hour battery. We've got door controller with 7 amp hour battery. So you can see here that this is a main controller, medium enclosure with power supply. AUP, so PS is power supply, B is battery. So you can see that. Same again here, power supply, battery. So it's even mentioned it here. So there's battery, 7 amp hour battery backups in those, so we don't have to add anything for that. Here's our card readers, electric locks. So card readers, electronic locks. Read switches, which is here. Exit buttons, emergency brake glass units. So Rex buttons and emergency brake glass units. Auto door interface was right there. There's our two auto door interfaces. All required cabling, programming, testing, and commissioning. So there's our cabling. We've got some access fobs, so I will make a note of that, and our programming, testing, commissioning, and just some miscellaneous. So that's the alarm access control built. I will, as I said, make a note here. So I'll just make an allowance for 50. Make sure I can type properly. Access fobs. And that's all we're doing, is we're just making a note here so that when whoever's looking at this knows that we've made an allowance for it. And that's it for the alarm access control side of things. Okay, so on to the CCTV. Now, this one will be a little bit, this one's going to be a little bit more complex than the alarm access control. And that's because there's a lot of variables when it comes to CCTV. So we're going to start off similar way that we started with the access control, apart from the putting the server and that kind of information together is a bit more custom. So we don't just have the ability to pull the takeoff templates for CCTV. We do when it's a pretty standard system. So if it was just 8-channel Hanwha CCTV system, or we use Dawa as well as an alternative. So we've got 16 channels, 32 channels, and then Hanwha 8 channels. So in a typical scenario, we could just select one of these, and it will give us our recorder, it'll give us our hard drives, it'll give us a monitor, it'll give us some of our cameras, it'll give us the junction boxes that we need for mounting, and it's giving us our cable. So it's if it's your typical CCTV system, then it is all available in the takeoff templates. Unfortunately for this one, it's not going to work like that. So I'm going to get rid of these two items just because they're not relevant here. But these items are relevant, so I'm going to keep those. So I'm just going to remove those two. I'm going to come into my catalog. So in our catalog, I know that we have a server in here that will do what we want. So this server is what I'm going to use. I believe these are the same. So I'm just going to